I'm Jeremy. Today's 395 of ratings. Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix. Let's get started. Currently on page 265. Let's go lock in. Tank, if you came to call. In the imposter Moody's days, it had been packed with various instruments and artifacts for the detection of wrongdoing and concealment. Now, however, it looked totally unrecognizable. The surfaces had all been draped in lacy covers and cloths. There were several vases full of dried flowers, each residing on its own doily. And on one of the walls was a collection of ornamental plates, each decorated with a large technicolor kitten wearing a different bow around its neck. These were so foul that Harry stared at them, transfixed, until Professor Umbridge spoke again. "Good evening, Mr. Potter." Harry started and looked around. He had not noticed her at first because she was wearing a luridly flowered set of robes that blended only too well with the tablecloth on the desk behind her. "Evening," Harry said stiffly. "Well, sit down," she said, pointing toward a small table draped in lace, beside which he had drawn up a straight-backed chair. A piece of blank parchment lay on the table, apparently waiting for him. Said Harry, without moving. "Professor Umbridge, before we start, I wanted to ask you a favor." Her bulging eyes narrowed. "Oh, yes? Well, I'm on the Gryffindor Quidditch team, and I was supposed to be at the trials for the new keeper at 5 o'clock on Friday, and I was wondering whether I could skip detention that night and do it another night instead." He knew long before he reached the end of his sentence that it was no good. "Oh, no," said Umbridge, smiling so widely that she looked as though she had just swallowed a particularly juicy fly. "Oh, no. This is your punishment for spreading evil, nasty, attention-seeking stories, Mr. Potter, and punishment certainly cannot be adjusted to suit the guilty one's convenience. No, you will come here at 5 o'clock tomorrow, and the next day, and on Friday too, and you will do your detentions as planned. I think it is rather a good thing that you are missing something you really want to do. It ought to reinforce the lesson I am trying to teach you." Harry felt the blood surge to his head and heard a thumping noise in his ears. "So he told evil, nasty, attention-seeking stories, did he?" She was watching him with her head slightly to one side, still smiling widely, as though she knew exactly what he was thinking and was waiting to see whether he would start shouting again. With a massive effort, Harry looked away from her, dropping his schoolbag beside the straight-backed chair, and sat down. "There," said Umbridge sweetly. "We're getting better at controlling our temper already, aren't we? Now, you are going to be doing some lines for me, Mr. Potter." "No, not with your quill," she added, as Harry bent down to open his bag. "You're going to be using a rather special one of mine. Here you are." She handed him a long, thin black quill with an unusually sharp point. "I want you to write 'I must not tell lies,'" she told him softly. "How many times?" Harry asked with a creditable imitation of politeness. "Oh, as long as it takes for the message to sink in," said Umbridge sweetly. "Off you go." She moved over to her desk, sat down, and bent over a stack of parchment that looked like essays, remarking. Harry raised the sharp black quill and then realized what was missing. "You haven't given me any ink," he said. "Oh, you won't need ink," said Professor Umbridge with the merest suggestion of a laugh in her voice. Harry placed the point of the quill on the paper and wrote, "I must not tell lies." He let out a gasp of pain. The words had appeared on the parchment in what appeared to be shining red ink. At the same time, the words had appeared on the back of Harry's right hand, cut into his skin as though traced there by a scalpel, yet even as he stared at the shining cut, the skin healed over again, leaving the place where it had been slightly better than before, but quite smooth. Harry looked around at Umbridge. She was watching him, her wide toad-like mouth stretched in a smile. "Yes?" "Nothing," said Harry quietly. He looked back at the parchment, placed the quill upon it once more, and wrote, I must not tell lies, and felt the searing pain on the back of his hand for a second time. Once again, the words had been cut into his skin. Once again, they healed over seconds later. And on it went. Again and again, Harry wrote the words on the parchment, and what he soon came to realize was not ink, but his own blood. And again, the words were cut into the back of his hand, healed, and then reappeared the next time he set the quill to parchment. Darkness fell outside Umbridge's window. Harry did not ask when he would be allowed to stop. He didn't even check his watch. He knew she was watching him for signs of weakness, and he was not going to show any. Not even if he had to sit here all night, cutting open his own hand with this quill. "Come here," she said, after what seemed hours. He stood up. His hand was stinging painfully. When he looked down at it, he saw that the cut had healed, but that the skin there was red raw. "Hand," she said. He extended it. She took it in her own. Harry repressed a shudder as she touched him with her thick, stubby fingers on which she wore a number of ugly old rings. "Tut, tut, I don't seem to have made much of an impression yet," she said, smiling. "Well, we'll just have to try again tomorrow evening, won't we? You may go." Harry left her office without a word. The school was quite deserted. It was surely past midnight. He walked slowly up the corridor then, when he had turned the corner and was sure she would not hear him, broke into a run. He had not had time to practice vanishing spells, had not written a single dream in his dream diary, and had not finished the drawing of the Bowtruckle, nor had he written his essays. He skipped breakfast next morning to scribble down a couple of made-up dreams for divination, their first lesson, and was surprised to find a disheveled Ron keeping him company. "How come you didn't do it last night?" Harry asked as Ron stared wildly around the common room for inspiration. Ron, who had been fast asleep when Harry got back to the dormitory, muttered something about doing other stuff, bent low over his parchment, and scrawled a few words. "That'll have to do," he said, slamming the diary shut. "I said I dreamed I was buying a new pair of shoes. She can't make anything weird out of that, can she?" They hurried off to the North Tower together. "How was detention with Umbridge anyway? What did she make you do?" Harry hesitated for a fraction of a second, then said, "Lines." "That's not too bad then, eh?" said Ron. "Nope," said Harry. "Hey, I forgot. Did she let you off for Friday?" "No," said Harry. Ron groaned sympathetically. It was another bad day for Harry. He was one of the worst in Transfiguration, not having practiced vanishing spells at all. He had to give up his lunch hour to complete the picture of the Bowtruckle, and meanwhile Professor McGonagall, Grubbly Plank, and Sinistra gave them yet more homework, which he had no prospect of finishing that evening because of his second detention with Umbridge. To cap it all, Angelina Johnson tracked him down at dinner again, and on learning he would not be able to attend Friday's keyboard tryouts, told him she was not at all impressed by his attitude, and that she expected players who wished to remain on the team to put training before their other commitments. "I'm in detention," Harry yelled after her as she stalked away. "Do you think I'd rather be stuck in a room with that old toad or playing Quidditch?" "At least it's only lines," said Hermione consolingly, as Harry sank back onto his bench and looked down at his steak and kidney pie, which he no longer fancied very much. "It's not as if it's a dreadful punishment, really." Harry opened his mouth, closed it again, and nodded. He was not really sure why he was not telling Ron and Hermione exactly what was happening in Umbridge's room. He only knew that he did not want to see their looks of horror, and would make the whole thing seem worse and therefore more difficult to face. He also felt dimly that this was between himself and Umbridge, a private battle of wills. And he was not about to give her the satisfaction of hearing that he had complained about it. "I can't believe how much homework we've got," said Ron miserably. "Well, why didn't you do any last night?" Hermione asked him. "Where were you, anyway?" I fancied a walk," said Ron shiftily. Harry had the distinct impression that he was not alone in concealing things in the moment. "Thank you, everyone. That's all for today. Bye. See you tomorrow. Tomorrow we're going to read page 270. Bookmark, closed. Thank you. Peace out.